Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports Talk back in the video today, and the Houston Texans have finished their season with a W to beat the Indianapolis Colts 32-31. And I don't think I could be this upset about a win. I understand that the Chicago Bears have their quarterback of the future in Justin Fields, and they're most likely not going to trade. They're not going to draft a quarterback with their first overall pick. So the Texans net with this win, they will get the second overall pick because the Bears lost. They get the first overall pick, and the Texans get the second with this win. So yes, the Bears have a quarterback in Justin Fields who's just phenomenal. They will not draft a QB, but there is a chance of them trading that pick for maybe a team who drafts up to one who does want Bryce Young and does need a QB, unlike the Bears. Which that for the Texans, that is not a good thing. That gives the Texans a chance to possibly miss out on Bryce Young. As you see, right pops up on the screen on the top. You got Lovey saying, "I expect to be back next season following a 3-13-1 season." And for me, the thing I'm most upset about is, the way this team has played all season. This is the game they finally show up and start playing good football. Is the game where you're trying to clinch the number one pick in the draft. I was proud of the way the team played today, but I just thought that it was kind of crazy how this team has been bad all year, and then they go and play lights out, or not lights out, but play really good on the last game of the season when we're trying to clinch the number one overall pick. Let's get to the scoring summary. Texans scored 2 scores in the first 5 minutes. Texans' first drive, a 7-play, 75-yard drive. In 3.5 minutes, a Davis Mills touchdown strike to Brandon Cooks for 11 yards. Extra point is good. Then you got a fumble on the kickoff. Texans recover, and then Ka'imi Fairbairn makes a 37-yard field goal, 10-0. Then the Colts in the first quarter would get their first score, a Sam Ehlinger touchdown pass to Michael Pittman Jr., and we would be 10-7. Then in the second quarter, after a lot of punts, with 10 minutes to go and 30 seconds, the Texans get an interception, pick six for Jonathan Grenard, 39-yard pick six for Jonathan Grenard. That just shows, even though he's missed a lot, it shows how great he's been when he's been on the field. He's one of those pieces for this Texans defense that's really good and has a future with this Texans defense. 17-7. Then the Colts score a touchdown. Zach Moss 15-yard rush to make it 7-14 starting the third quarter. The Texans would then go back, score a touchdown. Davis Mills to Jordan Akins for 19 yards, touchdown pass. Ka'imi Fairbairn extra point is good, 24-14. Then the Davis Mills would show, why he should not be the quarterback for the future for the Texans when Rodney McLeod would get a 27-yard interception return, and the Colts would make the extra point. And don't say, oh, yeah, it's just one mistake. He threw an interception. He played great. Texans got the win. Because then the next drive, Mills throws another interception that would lead the Colts to a 7-play, 58-yard drive and take the lead, 28-24. Mo Alley-Cox touchdown pass from Sam Ehlinger from 4 yards. And now the Texans are now down 24-28. When with 3 minutes and 33 seconds, when now the Texans are starting to look like they are going to get the first overall pick and lose this game, the Colts make a 54-yard field goal, 31-24, and the Texans have to get the ball back and score a touchdown to try to send it to overtime. So then the Texans are around the midfield area, and they have a 4th and 12. Texans go for it. Pass to Brandon Cooks is complete around the 20 area, 25, 20, in the 20s area yard line, or around the 30s, 20s, because the Texans would then have a Davis Mills 28-yard touchdown pass to Jordan Akins for the touchdown. And, oh, no, let's not go for the extra point to send this to overtime. Let's go for the 2-point conversion, which Davis Mills would complete a pass to Jordan Akins, and the Texans would get the win 32-31 and get the second overall pick. So, yeah, let's go over the game leaders. Davis was 22 for 38 with 300, with nearly 300, 298 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Sam Ehlinger was 23 for 35 with 209 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. The interceptions for the Texans was Jonathan Grenard, and I can't remember the other interception for the Texans. DeRay Ngwambwe for the Texans was the leading rusher with 11 carries and 33 yards. Zach Moss had 18 carries and 114 yards and 1 touchdown for the Bills. For the Texans, Brandon Cooks had 5 receptions and 106 yards and 1 touchdown. Possibly gets his trade value up a little bit for the next season. And because, the way he played shows, contending teams what Brandon Cooks does, because he was great late in this game, had a great touchdown later in the game, had a big 4th and 12 catch. So Brandon Cooks just, shows you what he does. Jackson was the leading receiver for the Colts with 6 receptions and 75 yards. All right, moving on to other receivers for the Texans. Jordan Akins. Man, let's talk about this guy. Oh, he was just amazing. 4 receptions, 70 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I think it's going to be really hard for the Texans to decide who they want to franchise tag going into this free agency. Do you franchise tag Jordan Akins, the tight end who's been amazing, or do you franchise tag Ogbenia Okongwu, who's been very good on the defensive end this year, has had like 5 sacks in the last, 5 games. He's been amazing. So I think the Texans have the decision to do who they're going to franchise tag. If either one of those, I think you got to franchise tag one. Of course, you could only franchise tag one, but in my opinion, I want to say go with Akins, but Ogbina has been so good, so I don't know. All right, moving on. Royce Freeman had 7 carries, 15 yards for the Texans. Tegan Quintanaro had an amazing game, only three receptions, but had 83 receiving yards. He's been big for this Houston Texans roster. Another great talented tight end on this Texans roster. Other receiver besides Brandon Cooks, Mills is throwing a lot to his tight ends today with Akins and Quintanaro. So 83 and 70 for those 2 guys. Then Brandon Cooks with 106. So that's where a lot of the Texans receiving yards came from, is from the tight end duo and Cooks. But Chris Moore got a little bit involved with 2 receptions and 22 yards, and then Amari Rodgers had 3 receptions and 22 yards. Fumbles. MJ Stewart would recover the fumble that the Colts had on the kickoff. It took me a minute to remember. MJ Stewart would recover the kickoff from that was in the first quarter when the Texans made it 10-0. So MJ Stewart recovered that. The Texans had no fumbles defensively. They had a Royce Freeman fumble that was lost. That was it. Defensive, Texans led in tackles was Christian Harris today. He had a sack. He had 2 tackles for loss, 10 tackles, like I said. How many sacks? 2 sacks for the Texans today, 3 tackles for loss. The 1 sack went to Christian Harris. The other went to Malik Collins. What about my guy I was talking about earlier, Ogbina Okongwu? He had a quiet day, only 1 tackle for him. Then Tavir Thomas had 9 tackles, 6 solo, 1 tackle for loss. Jalen Petrie had 8 tackles. He's been usually in the leading tackles for the Texans, not today for him. Then you got Jonathan Owens with 8, King with 6, 5 for Kirksey, 5 for Stewart, 4 for Blake Cashman, 3 for Eric Murray. I'm not going to go over the rest. I think you can see that list right there. Interceptions, Jonathan Grenard had the pick 6, and then Christian Kirksey had an interception for 18 yards. He's been a big part for this Texans defense this year as well. So, Yeah. Interceptions for the Colts. Rodney Thomas, the second, had an interception for 11 yards. He's former teammates in high school with Damar Hamlin, and he got to honor him on that interception. Which, I'm not gonna say I'm glad that interception was thrown, but I'm glad that his Damar Hamlin's former high school teammate was able to honor him in that way on that interception. Then another Ronnie McLeod Jr. would get the interception. That was the pick six for the Colts. So yeah, not a lot of kick returns for the Texans today. Only one kick return for Tremon Smith, 19 yards. Only one punt return for the Texans today. Desmond King with 16 yards, and Farron Barron was 3 for 3 on his extra points and one for 1 on his field goal. So Texans get the win to finish off the season. The season's been, there's a lot of words for what the season's been, but I think that the Texans, they got a lot of things to figure out. They got to take the rest of this day today, get some rest, and they got to figure out starting tomorrow. You start to figure out what you're doing what's your plans, because there's no waiting for this, because you got to figure out, what's the decision. Do you fire Lovie Smith? Do you fire both Lovie Smith and Caserio? Do you fire Caserio and keep Lovie Smith? Lovie Smith feels like, he's going to stay after this win. I don't know. I don't know. Texans got a lot of things to figure out going into these next 3-4 months, and I think that the Texans take the rest of this day off today, and tomorrow you go to work. Obviously your players aren't going to work anymore, but this is time for the front office to go to work and figure out everything that's going to be going on with this organization, because this organization has to get itself straight, and I have hope that the Texans can do that. I don't know if I believe in it, but I think that the Texans have to figure this out, and I think they will try to. But as of what happens with head coach, I'm not going to say Lovie Smith's been a bad head coach, but what I will say is what the announcers of the Texans said. The announcers in this game said today, Lovie Smith has not had a talented team. And I do agree with that. Lovie Smith, we have some talent. We have Brandon Cooks, who's been off and on this year. We have young talent who are starting to develop. You got Stingley Jr. and Jalen Petrie, and that's on the defensive end. This offense has no talent besides Jordan Akins and Brandon Cooks and Damian Pierce. And that's not going to start developing until next season. So I would not disagree. I would not mind giving Lovie Smith another shot, but if Lovie Smith gets another shot with the Houston Texans next season, things got to go right. Because there's no excuses next year. Next year, you have a quarterback. You have Bryce Young. Hopefully, you have him and a new wide receiver. Your defense is improved. You have some money to spend in free agency. Next year, there are no excuses. Obviously, if you go like 6-11 or 7-10 or something like that, or 5-12, or I'm not really 5-12 because I think you could still get fired for that. But like if you go like 6-11, I think you have to get at least 6 to 7 wins next season. If Lovie Smith would return, if you don't get, in my opinion, as a fan, I think if Lovie Smith were to return for a second year as the Texans head coach, if he does not get 6 to 7 wins next season as the Texans head coach, he will be fired. Because in my opinion, because, now the defense is improved. Stingley's healthy. Petrie's even better. The defense is improved. You have money in free agency. You have a new quarterback. Hopefully Quentin Johnson as your number 1 wide receiver in the draft. More talent all over the place. There's no excuses next year. So the Texans got to figure out what they're going to do. Who's going to be the coach next year. And just, keep going on from that after that. I think that I was a little disappointed how the Texans won this game today, because I wanted the Texans to lock up the first overall pick, but I still have belief that the Texans will be able to land Bryce Young with that second overall pick, hopefully, unless the Bears trade that pick, which I don't believe they will, but there always is a chance they could do that. So I mean, yeah, we will just see what happens. It's going to be a long off season for Houston Texans and Houston Texans fans like me. But even though I wanted the Texans to lock up this first overall pick, I was sort of a little bit happy that the Texans could finish off this season on a high note, and go into next year looking back at how they finished with this win, and remember that win next season. But besides that, that's the only reason to be happy about this win. Good performance by the Texans today to lose the first overall pick. Good performance by Jordan Akins. He had a great game, and great performance by Brandon Cooks as well. And Jonathan Grenard gets a pick 6, and the Texans get the win 32-31. That's it for the video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and peace out. Go Texans.